Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits named Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a cozy sandbank, nestled beneath the roots of a great towering fir tree. One bright morning, old Mrs. Rabbit gathered her children and said, "Now, my dears, you may go into the fields or wander down the lane. But whatever you do, stay out of Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an unfortunate accident there. He ended up in a pie, baked by Mrs. McGregor herself. Now off you go, and be sure not to get into trouble. I'm heading out." Then old Mrs. Rabbit took her basket and umbrella and set off through the woods to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 sweet currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went happily down the lane to pick blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty indeed, dashed straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and wriggled under the gate. First, he nibbled some lettuces, then helped himself to a few French beans, and after that, he munched on some radishes. But soon, feeling a little queasy, he began to search for some parsley. And just as he rounded the end of a cucumber frame, who should he bump into but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees, planting out young cabbages. But at the sight of Peter, he sprang to his feet and gave chase, waving a rake and shouting, "Stop, thief!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He darted this way and that across the garden, for he had quite forgotten the way back to the gate. In his panic, he lost one of his shoes among the cabbages and the other amongst the potatoes. Once he had lost both shoes, he took to running on all 4s and moved much faster. Indeed, he might have escaped altogether if he hadn't run straight into a gooseberry net and gotten tangled by the large brass buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket, quite new. Peter gave himself up for lost and began to cry great heavy tears. But his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who fluttered to him in a flurry of concern and urged him to struggle free. Just then, Mr. McGregor came along with a sieve, intending to trap Peter underneath it. But Peter wriggled out just in time, slipping out of his jacket and dashing into the tool shed. There, he jumped into a can. It might have been a perfect hiding spot, if only it hadn't been half full of water. Mr. McGregor was quite certain the little rabbit was somewhere in the shed, perhaps tucked beneath a flower pot. He began turning them over one by one, peering underneath each. Suddenly, Peter sneezed. "Kertyshoo!" In a flash, Mr. McGregor lunged toward the sound and tried to step on him. But Peter sprang through a window, knocking over 3 flower pots. Peter sat down beneath a bush to catch his breath. He was shaking with fright, soaked through from the water, and had not the faintest idea which way to go. After a while, he began to wander, lippity-lippity, not very quickly, and glancing all around him. At last, he came upon a little door in a wall. But it was locked and far too narrow for a plump little rabbit to squeeze underneath. Just then, an old mouse scurried over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the woods. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but her mouth was so full of a large pea that she couldn't reply. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Then he tried to make his way straight across the garden, but the more he wandered, the more confused he became. Soon he came upon a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his watering cans. Beside it sat a white cat, intently watching the goldfish below. She was perfectly still, except for the very tip of her tail, which twitched now and then, as if it were alive. Peter thought it wiser not to speak to her. He had heard stories about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. So he turned back toward the tool shed. But suddenly, quite close by, came the sharp sound of a hoe. Scritch, scratch, scratch, scritch. Peter darted beneath the bushes in alarm. When nothing happened, he crept out quietly and climbed onto a wheelbarrow to peer over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions, his back turned. And just beyond him, there it was, the gate. Peter slipped silently down from the wheelbarrow and took off running, as fast as his legs would carry him, along a straight path behind the blackcurrant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught a glimpse of him just at the corner, but Peter didn't look back. He dived under the gate and at last was safe. Safe in the woods beyond the garden. Mr. McGregor later found the little blue jacket and the shoes, and hung them up on a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running until he reached home beneath the big fir tree. He was so very tired that he flopped down on the soft, warm sand of the rabbit hole floor and closed his eyes. His mother was in the middle of cooking. She wondered what had happened to his clothes. It was the second jacket and pair of shoes Peter had lost in just a fortnight. I'm sorry to say that Peter was not feeling at all well that evening. His mother put him straight to bed and made some chamomile tea. She gave him a dose, 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end.